Hello there. Welcome back to Blue Heinz Garage. Today is July 25th, Friday. And we're going to try to establish a brake system. In other words, we're putting fluid in it. So we're going to be bench bleeding the master cylinder, only we're doing it in place instead of in a vise. So I have the first two lines removed off the master cylinder. I have fluid in the reservoirs. I'm going to pump the pedal so we bleed all the air out of the master. Then I'm going to put the lines back on. And I'm going to attach hoses to the bleeders. I'm going to do probably the back ones first because they're the furthest away. I've got 10-foot lengths of hose, 4 of them. So I'm going to start with the back ones. I'll do 2 on the back. So I'm going to put the hoses on the bleeders of the wheel cylinders, run them over to the reservoir, and literally pump brake fluid through the system until it's all fluid, no air. And then I'll close the bleeders and move the tubes to the front wheels and do the same thing on the front. So when I'm finished, I should have a system that is totally full of fluid with no air bubbles. The hoses that I have are semi-clear, so you'll be able to see the bubbles, and obviously you'll be able to see them coming out of the fluid in the reservoir as well. All right, so here goes. I'll set up the tripod so you can watch this and watch me flood the garage with brake fluid. Okay, well, here goes. I'm not exactly sure what's the best way to try and do this. I don't know where I could set this up so you'd be able to see a whole lot better. That master cylinder is tucked down there in the chassis, so it's kind of hard to... Let's see if I can get something a little closer. Well, I don't know if that's going to work a whole lot better, but I think you can see a little more. Let's go try it. All right, so let's see what happens here. Here goes. See if I can not splash all over everything. Already a fair amount of air coming up in there. No air. Okay. So the master cylinder is bled. That one is leaking a little. Well, I did lose a little fluid out of that one. Oops, wrong. Here. Okay, well, here we are back again. I got the second hose on the passenger side rear brake. I pumped quite a bit before I did the second hose, so the driver's wheel is way ahead. The driver's side is way ahead of the passenger side. And there was a few leaks. I had a leak over here on the passenger front where the flexible hose attached to the caliper. And I had a couple leaks in the lines over there on the other side. Stuff wasn't tight enough, essentially. I think I have all that corrected, so now we're at a place where we're waiting for the fluid to get to the master cylinder coming from the wheels. And we're almost there. Like I said, the driver's side, the fluid's here in the tube. I'm afraid it's going to overflow, but I guess I'm pumping out as much as coming in. The fluid's right here. There's a big air gap, and then there's fluid. Okay. My reservoir is awful close to the top. Whoop, there goes a bubble, some bubbles. I'm going to overflow here in a minute, it looks like. Okay. Well, I'm not seeing any more puddles on the floor where it was leaking. So that's a good thing. You know that this thing wants to, it makes a, when you start, it makes a little squirt. And that's not good. It's running down here on the back side of the cylinder, and I'm sure it's taking the paint off. Okay, well, I don't know how much of that you saw me chasing around here. There was a brown puddle of fluid underneath each rear tire. So I stopped to investigate, pulled that tire off on that side. You can't see, I guess. Pull that tire off on that side. And it was all dry inside the brake drum. So it's like, okay, what the hell's going on here? What I come to find out was, I think when it leaked the first time, you know, I'm not sure. I'm not sure where, there was fluid on the tires, both tires. And that's why it was brown on the floor, because it drained off the wheels and picked up dirt off the tires. There's nothing wet on the inside. Wheels were wet on the back. So I think it's residual from one of the first leaks. I'm hoping. Here goes. We're just going to keep pumping and see if we can get all the air out of the two back ones before it's time for dinner. Seems like I pumped all the air out of this one. But I'm still getting fluid running down the back side of the wheel here, and I'm not sure where it's leaking from. Okay, well, I think I figured out what the problem was with that, what was causing that and that. I think it was I had the bleeders open too far. So I think what it was doing was sucking air in and letting fluid out around the bleeders. Because I closed that bleeder, I think I had it open 2 turns or something like that. I closed that bleeder. First of all, closed this one completely because there was no air in the line. And I closed that one till it was only open a quarter of a turn. And it pushed all the air out right away. So I mean, it was what it was doing. You could see it would push push the fluid and the bubble, and as soon as you'd let go of the pedal, it would go right back. And after I closed this one and closed that one until it was only open a quarter, you know, a piece of a turn, it pushed all the air right out. So I think the back brakes are air free. So I'm gonna go have dinner and download this. I got an hour and 14 minutes on this right now, and download this and download it. I don't know. Put it on the computer and try and come back out here after dinner and do the fronts, because tomorrow I'm not going to be here. Hello there. Okay, well, you can see where we made a few improvements here. I repainted the master cylinder after splashing brake fluid on it and removing some of the paint. So it's pretty much all black again. A lot of the paint was going over here on the back where it splashed. The rear reservoir, every time you would touch the pedal, it would squirt. It would make a little fountain come out of it. And so you had to go really slow. And you know, with 100 pumps, you're going to miss a few of those. So, like I said, the stuff and the tape that I had on there, I think made it worse because it would capture the fluid instead of letting it run off. Maybe no tape is better. At any rate, protected all of this yesterday so that I wouldn't do any damage with the paint, and ended up having to, I believe that was painted with Extreme Chassis Black, the Eastwood Extreme Chassis Black. And obviously I'm not going to spray, it was a spray can. I'm not going to spray this because it's just, you can't protect everything. It's too much to cover. So I used a brush. So anyway, I did that. Also finished modifying the control panel. You notice how different it looks now. Now there are two switches and I just put the labels on. So the upper switch was there. The one that's marked ignition was there. The start button was there. The oil pressure gauge was there. I added the fan switch. Added the wiring for the fan. You see here, it goes inside the frame from over here. Right down there, it goes in the frame. You see it poking in there, and over here it comes out of the frame. This is temporary, but it's all going to be used on a permanent basis when I wire this. I'll use that for the fan, feed, probably the alternator, the main wire going to the charging wire going back from the alternator on this side. The other side will have, there's a similar situation on the other side. The other side will have, oh, and this one will have the temperature. The ground from the temperature sensor to operate the fan relay will come down this side too. So there'll be 2, 3, 4 wires going in that little thing there. Hello there, how are you? So anyway, let me show you how this works. I got it fired up last night. Actually, I got it fired up last night and it was loud and it was going the wrong direction. That's probably why it was loud. I reversed, you know, with DC, if you reverse the polarity, the motor goes the opposite way. So I did that on these two connections here. I reversed them and the sound went about half of what it used to be, what it was. Going backwards, the sound went way down, and I'll show you how it pulls. He made these pieces here and then brought them home, welded them, and came back yesterday afternoon and tacked the two base pieces on the muffler. So you see that this piece here is this little piece here. Here is a base piece that's matches the brace, and it's drilled and tapped the same place the brace is for the bolts. And that makes these things extremely stable. They aren't going anywhere. So, and he's got to finish welding that, but that will happen in due course. So that now that those are fixed and they're not going anywhere, now we can finish modifying that center piece, that center exhaust piece. This, let me turn this straight piece that leaves this joint down here. See where my finger is? Leaves that joint, and it goes forward to the first flange at the collector, the header collector. That piece needs to be modified slightly so that the length is correct and the height where it meets the height in the front where it meets the flange is correct. So we got to make a couple little modifications on that, and maybe do the hanger brackets. See, there's one right there. Maybe do the hanger brackets over again. Move them on the exhaust pipes, not on the frame. On the frame, it's all finished, so we'll move the bracket to match what's on the frame. There's that one. All right, so anyway, let me show you this, set you up and show you this radiator, the cooling fan. Stay put. I mean, stand by. Well, this looks like it'll work. Let me see if I can show you how this draws. It has a really strong draw. Okay, there's what it sounds like. See, it's not too loud. You know what I learned? What I may have learned from this, the 57 Chevy has a cooling fan on it too. And it sounds very much like this one did when it was going backwards. So I got to go check that and make sure it's going the right direction. This one seems a lot quieter than the 57 one. You can hear that from inside the car. But watch this, you'll see what I'm talking about here. You see it's pulling it already? Look. That's got a great draw. See that? Watch when the fan stops, it'll fall off. At least it did last night. There it goes. All right, so there you go. Getting anxious now to start this. I brought a hose, that lower radiator hose that I cobbled together from two 90-degree elbows the other day. Brought that to the parts house, auto parts house yesterday, and he ordered one. We picked one out of a catalog that looks like it might work. It's supposed to be here today. I'm going to go tomorrow. They're short-handed today. I think there's only one guy there. So I'm going to go tomorrow when there's two guys there. Hopefully I won't have to wait as long. Anyway, that's where we're at today. Today is the 30th of July. See ya.